Your 2 cents on the Shedeur Sanders his draft experience, now that we're a couple of days removed from actually being drafted, is what, Dan?
Yeah. Was I surprised that he went as late as he did? Yes. I don't think we have to answer. I've heard everybody in the last 48 hours have to answer the question of, well, why do you think he fell? We don't have to answer the think part of it anymore. We kind of know now, if the outside person knows now. And I believe that we got a lot of great reporters that are attached to the media and the NFL. I work at ESPN. So I pay attention to everybody's reports. And throughout this process, as it's gotten closer to the draft, you heard the reports that were public reports that, we're trying to find a team and he might be slipping. And, I think that, again, there's so many good reporters, but I pay attention to what Shefty says. And I paid attention to what Peter Schrager was saying. And I thought those guys did a great job of just taking the conversations that they were having and gathering the information. And if you really paid attention to it, you realize that it didn't seem made up and it didn't seem positive. And so was I surprised that he went in the 5th round? Yes. But the more you paid attention to how they were communicating all the information that they were gathering, it seemed that a lot of the teams shared with them that their experience with Shedeur in the draft evaluation process was not a good one. It's not what I think. It's just hearing the information. And so, Rich, I thought just off tape, and that's part of it because I saw a lot of I saw him in mock drafts as like the 3rd pick or the 2nd or at worst 3rd best quarterback. My job, Daniel Jeremiah, who's as good as it gets, people's jobs that are just we get part of the picture. It is just part of the picture. Like we're just going strictly off the player, the tape. And we all know that is only part of the process. And so when those teams are diving in with those guys and experiencing them, and you're making a massive investment in the person as much as you are the player. And the teams felt that they weren't comfortable with that. And so I guess I was surprised that the player on tape went as late as he did. I had from the beginning kind of felt like he was a late one, early 2nd round. I could be argued into 3rd round type of talent. But, again, we don't have to think of why 5th round became into the conversation and because the teams shared their experiences.
Dan Orlovsky here on the Rich Eisen Show. Obviously, it'll be years till we can talk about wins, losses, and things of that nature. Which team's draft jumps out at you to say, okay, I really like what they did. I like what they're clearly building or adding to. Which one is that, Dan?
Yeah, I really like both New York teams. I really do. I thought the Giants and Jets both but the Giants won the draft, and it felt like in a day and a half changed the whole perception of where they are as an organization.
Wow.
Laughing stock because you trade away Saquon Barkley and, he goes on to have this historic season. And then, in a short period of time, you get a guy that everyone that knows about rushers says, this guy's awesome. Okay, Abdul Carter. And then you take Jackson Dart late in the 1st round, and I think Jackson Dart's going to be a good player. You get Scattaboo, I believe, in the 4th round, who I think is going to be a really nice piece with their 1-2 punch and running backs. And it just looks like competency. It looks like hope. It looks like they have a plan moving forward, obviously, with the addition of Russell and Jameis. So it's kind of this whole offseason. The Giants now feel like, we may have a building block of foundation for their future. The Jets, Membu, everyone raved about as a tackle. I thought, that was a great pick. I loved Mason Taylor. Candidly, I thought Mason Taylor had the chance to be a late 1st round pick. I was like, man, the Rams, I could see them getting him. Arian Smith's super fast. Now he's got to be more consistent with his hands. Malachi Moore, Auburn, Alabama, multiple time captain. So I like that the Jets laid a really good foundation for, some good pieces. Obviously, Philly had a great draft. Howie Roseman, I was sitting there with Marcus Spears and Nagandi, and when Howie took Campbell in the 1st round, Marcus said so many swear words out loud. And I took a video with him and I texted Howie Roseman and I said, Spears can't stand you. And he said, we're just getting started, baby. So, I thought Philadelphia's draft was really good. I also like New England's, and I've been really critical of New England, but to get Will Campbell and Rich, I don't know if you've heard much of his sound clips,
Yeah, yeah.
but good Lord, dude, I would want to play quarterback for that guy. I mean, I feel like Drake May has got to feel like the most secure person in the planet right now. When that guy's the way he talks and the reverence he talks. Travion Henderson's a really good back. I like Kyle Williams. Got to catch the ball more consistently, but just the ability to have vertical speed, I think, is a really big part and needed part of their offense. So to get a tackle that, Will Campbell just reminds me of Andrew Whitworth in a way. Like, hey, man, I'm going to be really good, and that relationship that I have with that quarterback, it's like me and my wife. Like like that's how great offensive linemen are. So, I thought they had a really good draft. Green Bay really good, Denver really good. Dallas needed a receiver, but I thought they did some nice stuff. But I thought there were some teams that were impressive.
Dan Orlovsky here on the Rich Eisen Show. So then, which quarterback taken between Cam and Shedeur, or even after? I'll give you the floor. Which one do you think is? We already mentioned about Dart. I don't think he's starting. I just don't think he's going to start this year. And if the Giants had their druthers, they'd have a successful season with one of the two backups, and Dart would watch or look or maybe wet his beak a little bit, like Patrick Mahomes did at the end of his first year. So I guess from Shuck to McCord or even Ewers, tell me who you like in the mix that we have right there.
Yeah, so real quick, so I'll go from top to bottom. Obviously, Cam Ward's going to start. It looks like they're going to follow the Joe Burrow model, and kind of what they do with Cincinnati and a lot of ball distribution. And I think that's a good situation. I agree. Jackson Dart shouldn't start. I mean, he's, I don't know if you saw the Gruden clip. He doesn't even know how to use a cadence. They did the clap cadence. It was great with Coach Gruden when he was like, give me your cadence. And he clapped. He's like, seriously. He's like, this is all we do. So, there's a lot of, while super talented, there's a lot of stuff he's going to have to learn. I think Tyler Shuck's going to play just because, you hear the stories of Derek Carr. And I think that was part of the reason why they liked Tyler Shuck. Is we need an adult in the room in a way. Obviously, his age is a big part of that conversation. And so if Derek Carr can't play, you feel somewhat comfortable with Tyler Shuck. I don't think Milroe plays, but I loved this pick for Seattle. For me, he was a guy that if you just believed in development and you believe in that young man's work ethic and his character, and you just give him time to work on because he's still so just scratching the development phase moving forward. I honestly, if I was Cleveland, and this is a little bit easy because my job's not on the line type of thing, I think the world of Kevin Stefanski. But if I was Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, and I had a pretty good feeling that we're going to be here for those 2 first-round picks of next year that they have to maybe decide the quarterback situation, I would be hard-pressed to not start Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. I want to play one of those guys. Maybe I play both of them over the course of the season. Let's see if we struck gold with one. Like, let's see if we got lucky with one and we found a rookie year Dak Prescott type of player. So I think they're both in good situations, but I think we'll see a decent amount of rookie quarterbacks play this year.
Right. Okay. And then, the rest of them, if you wouldn't mind, Mike Hoskins, popping that back up on the screen, those quarterbacks. McCord and Howard, those are two guys that we've been talking quite a lot. Will Howard sits there too. I mean, McCord is, I guess, in the Tanner McKee spot to try and compete there behind Jalen Hurts. Will Howard, I mean, you look at the Steelers and you're thinking, obviously, they've got to be thinking, and we had Tomlin on Saturday on NFL Network. He basically said we're expecting him to come. Like, I dare not to put words in his mouth, but, the rest of the guys are definitely going to be there and hopefully sticking with the team and developing. But what about Howard there in Pittsburgh, do you think?
Yeah. Dan? Will Howard, first of all, it starts with Aaron, right? Everyone knows that. If Aaron's going to be there, Aaron's going to be starting quarterback. If for some reason Aaron's not going to be there, then it's really Will Howard and Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph's one of the better backups in the NFL. So everyone that you talk to about Will Howard loved the guy, loved the way that his teammates loved him. He obviously got hot at the end of the season. He's a big athletic dude with a big arm that can, you got good perimeter pieces. I think of obviously the Jeremiah Smith connection that he had as the playoff went on, and DK Metcalf and George Pickens. So he's a little bit, I want to use the phrase like afterthought right now, because the focus in Pittsburgh from both, I would imagine, internally and externally, is Aaron Rodgers. But there's still the chance that he doesn't go until he actually goes there. So if he doesn't go, I think Will Howard probably becomes a little bit more of the conversation. If Aaron goes there, he's probably the guy that you're looking at to the future, and as your number 3 quarterback right now.
Dan Orlovsky here on the Rich Eisen Show, and then just putting a bow on it. I mean, you mentioned how if you're Stefanski, maybe you play Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur. I mean, they can't take 4 in, right? Like, how do you see this competition going? I see it, just to throw it out there, and then you can tell me if I'm off or not, that they're just going to look at Flacco and say, we know you, okay? And we're going to have you, and you may damn well be the week 1 starter. So we're just going to remove you. You can be ready tomorrow. So we're not going to worry about you, right? He's on the team, and then it's a game of 2 spots for 2 rookies and a guy who's trying to reclaim his status as a first-round draft choice quarterback in Kenny Pickett, right, Dan? I mean, how does this work?
So it was obvious that once they traded out of the number 2 position, that at least at that position there wasn't looking forward to 2026. That you get that second first-round pick in 2026. I understand value, but when you're an organization that doesn't have a quarterback, that is naturally going to be, rightfully so, what we attach the thought process to. So there's, and initially my mind goes to, okay, there's got to be, overall, looking at that class and saying there's some really high potential guys that might be in that class. So if you are the Browns and that's your thought process, I agree with you. Joe can go out and play probably competent football tomorrow. So if that's what you have, and you think as an organization that the general manager and the head coach are the right people, really indifferent of results this year, outside of, oh my gosh, it's a total disaster, then I really do think you want to do everything you can to figure out Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And did you find a guy that all of a sudden becomes Brock Purdy, all of a sudden becomes Dak Prescott, all of a sudden becomes a mid-round pick that overplays where he was selected, and maybe then quarterback's not that pressing need in the first round next year? Maybe you get to be in the advantageous situation that not only did you steal a starting quarterback, but you got him in a later rounds, and now you can really build a roster that can go on a 2 or 3 year run around that quarterback. So I think that's probably the way that I would go about it if I was Cleveland. Now, if both of those guys in camp tell you we can't play, like we're not good, we're not good players, or early on in the season, then you have a starter that can keep you in football games and play good winning football.
Yeah, I just find it that they're going to, I don't know. The way I look at it, I see it's more likely Flacco, Pickett, and one of the rookies than Flacco and 2 rookies. That, you know what I mean?
What would be the so I think the pushback that I would have to that, Rich, is what would be the benefit to keeping a Kenny Pickett over the 2 rookies? Let's say they're one's an 8 and one's a 7 out of the 1 through 10 rating type of thing.
I don't know. Winning games, it's just that simple, and I know winning games in the long run, if you're already looking over the steering wheel at 2026, is not optimum. I don't know, man. I think one of them might show in training camp whether they're ready or not. And
I agree.
And so carrying 2 rookies in Flacco means you're really opening your season up to being one long training camp for 2026, or at least a laboratory for your draft. And I just don't know if that's the way Myles Garrett, is this the quarterback plan that he had, was 5 guys, 2 rookies?
Yeah.
I mean, with Watson sitting out there too, still on their roster.
I totally understand that. I guess the counterpoint I would have thought process is, and with all due respect to Kenny, it's not like Kenny Pickett's Myles Garrett's gonna go, all right, we kept Kenny, instead. So I think that Cleveland's obviously in a better place than they were to start the draft at the quarterback position. And when you're in those positions, you're always trying to find players that overperform, right? And while Kenny might have had, now maybe Kenny becomes a trade piece. Maybe Kenny has a really good training camp. It becomes a training camp preseason, and some team needs a guy that can go play good football. So again, it's going to be decided on the field. But I think if both those guys show signs as rookies, I'd be hard pressed to not try to figure out who and what they are.
So then what's the one guy? I know there's 257 of them, but screw it. I'll ask you anyways. I leave you on this Monday. The one guy that you're like, perfect pick, perfect fit, kid's going to just crush it. Could be anybody that we just described. Could be obvious. Could be top 5. Doesn't matter. Which one do you?
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 because I can never give one. The 2 first-round tight ends. I got an argument yesterday with a buddy of mine who's a Bears fan, and he's like, "Why didn't we take Tyler Warren?" And I said, "Listen, they're both awesome players. Loveland actually fits a little bit of what Ben Johnson wants to do more out of their tight ends in Chicago than Warren. Doesn't make him a lesser player. You want a one-on-one guy. Anybody who watched the tape of these guys saw Loveland was a little bit more of a one-on-one guy in Michigan. You got to be able to block at the point. Loveland did that a little bit more. And I think Tyler Warren's going to have just as much of an impact. He reminds me of Trey McBride out of the Cardinals. Just get him in shrunk down formations, find ways to get him the football. He's going to be a massive yards after the catch guy. I think there's going to be a little bit of a benefit with the creativity from Caleb on broken plays. And so you talk about 2 tight ends that I think went to perfect places and should have immediate big time impact for their offenses. It's those guys.
What about the Raiders and Jeanty? I mean, Jeanty was saying that Marshawn Lynch was a guy who was kind of whispering in his ear this entire time, and Pete Carroll's the one who drafts him. What do you think?
Raiders fans are upset with me. I really like Jeanty. I'm not gonna, like Genty's a really, really nice player. The Raiders last year averaged 3.4 yards per carry. That's the worst for an NFL team since 1996. I think it was like 1.9 yards before contact, which was the worst in the NFL. So while the run game was bad in general, and they had a multitude of backs carry the ball, it wasn't just the back. And so I understand it's a new regime and all that, but I do believe in building your front before you get that final piece. While the running back usage and, obviously the impact has rightfully so come back to the NFL, it still is about the line of scrimmage. And I just hope that the Raiders really form an offensive line that is worthy of capitalizing on that back's talent rather than sitting there going, okay, we're going to hand it off to the back and we'll figure it out as we go type of thing. So I do like what they did. I wish their offensive line was a little bit better because then I thought it could be a special connection.
Dan, you're the man. Thanks again, pal. I know you worked your ass off last week. It was great seeing you. It's great running into you.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, our sets were right next to each other. It was that Anchorman moment, right? On Wednesday when we were all rehearsing on Wednesday.
Waving through the glass?
No, that when we were all hanging out behind our respective sets, and we were all just hanging. We should have taken a picture, all of us, or like mocked that we were having a fight, because it did look like an alleyway too, right? We could have.
Yeah.
Next year,
now
in
that you put the visual in my head, for sure.
Next year in Pittsburgh, we'll do that. Dan, thanks for the time.
I look forward to it.
We'll chat
soon. Thanks, brother.
Obviously, that's Dan Orlovsky, one of the best of the best, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.